Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Money Goddess podcast. I'm your host, Jasmine Thomas Bridges, the Money Goddess, and this is our first episode on air. I am so excited to have you all with me, and a lot of you all are learning about me today as I dive into more about myself, sharing my story, who I am, and why I am talking about money. Thank you so much for joining in and listening. This is going to be a life-changing podcast episode for you because I believe there is power in telling our stories. And a lot of people are afraid to tell their story because of what they've been through, or maybe you're still healing. And it's a journey, it's a process. And the things that I'm going to share with you are not things that were easy for me to deal with at that time. But I know in my heart of hearts that this needs to be shared with more people so that you can enjoy the beauty and the divine right to have money. So, I want to start off with my purpose in this entire podcast. So, I call this podcast the Money Goddess podcast because I am a potent manifester when it comes to money. And I always have been. And some of you all may be new to spirituality, the law of attraction, law of assumption. And so it may come off as like, huh, the money goddess, what? But welcome to my world. And I actually am an eight, and that is my life path number. If you are not familiar with that, I encourage you to Google it. You will be doing lots of learning on this podcast with practical and spiritual energetic work. So go see what your life path number is, and you'll know what you are here to achieve. So for me, I am here to bring together spiritual and practicality and be able to manifest a bunch of money. And that's just what I'm here for. And I'm here to teach people about that. So I got into talking about money because it's something that I really enjoy and I know that people need. And whenever you are passionate about something that people need, it's just very easy to ramble on and on about it. You're bound to learn something from me. I mean, I think about all of my friends, over the past couple years. I have been in business for 8 years, and I have seen my friends change as I have changed and up leveled in discussing money and how it works for me. I've watched my friends go from working as teachers like myself to manifesting six-figure paying jobs. I've seen my mom, which I will talk about a little bit more later in the episode, go into creating her own business selling African print clothing. And when you hear more about her story, you'll see like, whoa, like that's a really big step. And I have inspired millions of people, and they are so abundant and so happy with their abundance. And I want to take this influence further and internationally. And I know that that is the purpose of this podcast and what we're here for. So I do want to encourage you to share this. If you're listening on the air, please tell your friends to tune in to 99.1 on Thursdays at 3 p.m. CST, 4 p.m. EST, because I'm going to be able to just pour into your lives, and you'll have the opportunity to just up level. I mean, that's just what the vibrations are, okay? So now I want to talk more about my personal story. And I'm going to take you back as far as I know. And just stay with me because what I'm going to share with you is going to change your life. And I may cry, I may get, emotional because I believe that my story is not typical. And everyone doesn't make it. And what I mean by that is everyone doesn't push harder to go for their dreams. When you hear about my story and where I come from, you will be so surprised. And I just want you to know that anything is possible. Anything is possible. Mark 9:23 was always a Bible verse that I lived by, especially as a teenager. And I am looking at my life now and I see that. And I do believe that. And I think that it is important for you to know that God will allow you to step into places that you never thought possible. I am the descendant of my third great grandmother, who was a slave, and she lived in Heidelberg, Mississippi, with her slave owner. She was a Native American woman. We are from the Blackfeet tribe. Don't get confused with the Blackfoot tribe. If you go to the museum in New York, the historical museum, you will actually see a museum work of art showcasing more information about the Blackfeet tribe, which was astonishing when I went last October with my best friend and my family, her family. And it's amazing to think about that and what that says about me, and I wish that there was like a better path for my family, like coming from her, but it wasn't. My family grew up in extreme poverty, as you can imagine. My mother was born in the 60s and like they had outhouses. They could barely afford food. Of course, they didn't have transportation. They had to walk everywhere. And, while they may try to talk about it positively now, like it was very traumatic for them. There was a lot of abuse. My grandmother and her husband, unfortunately, like had altercations, and to the point to where my mom and her siblings like had to fight him to get him off of my grandmother. And there was a lot that went on, and even my great grandmother was abusive to my mother. And it's just so many things. My mom didn't grow up with her dad until later in her life, which is my grandfather, and I was very close to him before he died in 2022. But as you can see, like there was just so much going on, and my father even experienced that too. And he grew up and he had to help his family, so he had to drop out of school in the 8th grade. They ate like onion sandwiches. It was just a struggle, and he was kind of like the black sheep of the family, just like my mom. And they winded up together and breaking so many generational curses that I'm very proud of them. Our parents aren't perfect, and I'm a parent. I have a toddler son who's 2.5, Mr. TJ. So you may hear me talk about him a little bit. But, they really stepped it up. My mom was the first high school graduate in our family. And that was a big deal. And it's still a big deal. Um, my father did not graduate from high school. He went back and got his GED when I was about 2, and then he graduated from community college with a welding degree when I was about 4. And they had done all right for themselves. Definitely not perfect, definitely didn't have it all together, but they had done better, and they were able to purchase a home. And my mom did work at Goodwill. She worked as a cafeteria worker for 25 years. As you can imagine, the money wasn't always there for her. And unfortunately, my father passed away when I was 9. And that was a very pivotal point for me in my life. Although I don't know if, actually, I didn't know it at the time. I didn't. And it was definitely a challenge because I'm Black, I'm poor, young, fatherless. The neighborhood I grew up in, now it's like a lot more calm. But when I was growing up, it was like gang, gang. And I saw some things, and it's just crazy now to like reflect back and think. I've seen some people wind up, unfortunately, on drugs from my community, and they are still suffering with that, overdoses, fentanyl, you name it. I have friends that were young and, sexually active very early. And all of these things around me, like, I should not be where I am today. And I'm going to get into that more. But I share all of this and I'm also from Picayune, Mississippi. Like, if that doesn't tell you enough, my family is originally from DeRidder, Louisiana. And I mean, it's just a lot to think about. It's a lot to think about all of these things in culmination and how I've been able to overcome them. And some people in my family have been able to step up and overcome those things, but others haven't. And it's just when you see the progress, as I've reflected on my own life, I'm like, wow, wow. Where I started to see I was a little bit different is, even though I had all those things happening in my life at such a young age, I put myself into, I would say I positioned myself to prosper. I'll say it like that. And that's why I actually have a masterclass called Position to Prosper about passive income streams. So, and when I say I positioned myself, I mean, I joined clubs and organizations. I personally stayed out of trouble. Like, my mom didn't really have to do anything for me to do that. I wanted to do that. I motivated myself. My mom stopped helping me with my homework when I was in kindergarten. Like, I'm a self-made woman. And what I mean by that is, while I love people's support and upliftment, it doesn't take me much to pull myself up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm that person that's just gonna get up and go. And I was in dance and cheer and Girl Scouts and all of these things. And my mother definitely supported me in all of those endeavors. And I give her flowers for that, because it wasn't easy being able to put her child and all those things off a $10,000 a year salary. It's not a lot, but she did it. And she helped me to see that anything was possible. And there's actually one thing, especially if you are a single mother, most of my audience, you all are women. Listen to me. I don't care what your situation is. If you take care of your children, God will take care of you. It's just a law. Like, it's a law. And I need you to know that in this, your children will praise you. They will thank you because you've provided them so much and so many opportunities. Like, it's such a sacred blessing. Never take that for granted. Never take that for granted. And I got to the point where I was all the way through high school. And I mean, I had taken AP courses. I had done really well on the ACT. I was, dance captain, all of these things. Like, I have found my gifts and talents in the arts, and I just had a natural knack for things. I mean, I graduated number 6 out of 216. I had won pageants. I had done all these things, and I started recognizing there were some techniques that I was actually using to do this. And I was just a strong manifester when it came to college scholarships. And that is where the money started coming in. And I would just sit down and write out my goals. And I actually started this in middle school, maybe even before middle school. I would get Cosmopolitan magazines. And I remember some of my friends coming over my house, like, your mom lets you put that stuff on your wall. I always had like a little vision board where I would put things that inspired me or quotes. And I write all my goals down on there and just decorate it. And I would see that every morning. And it's crazy because I still do that. I still do that to this day, except now I use Post-its because I want my walls to look good. And I put them on my mirror. So that's something you can also, try for yourself. And I had manifested so much money for college that it paid for it. And I was able to at least get a refund check, which everybody knows, baby, in college, then refund checks be hidden. Those refund checks are everything. And man, it was just amazing to see all of that. But there were so many things in college where I was broke. I was broke, even though I had manifested all that. I didn't know that, $1,000 could only last you for so long in a refund. I didn't know that I would be paying, for books and all of those different things. And I mean, I really continue actually to manifest scholarships throughout my time. And a couple of those were from traveling abroad. And while I was broke, I was going places. I was in my sorority representing going places. And it's just crazy to think about, how far I was able to go, even though I didn't really have the money. And I mean, it was bad. Like I had to, I worked several jobs, but at one point I couldn't work because I was student teaching and I actually student taught in London. And I manifested that scholarship to go because that was the only way. And I did not have any help from home. I didn't get gas money. I didn't get support. There were a lot of things I just didn't get. And if you are young and listening to this, listen, it gets better. It gets easier. I'm telling you. Whatever your age is, listen to this podcast will help you. I don't care if you're, a teenager, college student, if you're a millennial like myself, if you are, in your 50s and 60s, this podcast episode is going to help you in some sort of way. As I traveled abroad, my mind started to open and I started to see like I can do anything. I don't care what amount of money that I have. I know that I can get anything that I desire. There's no way someone like me, poor with this background, should be traveling to London student teaching. I also traveled abroad to Jamaica and I was able to take a human rights course and work with some teachers in Jamaica. Like, how? I also went to Mexico and did mission work. And I just think about all these things. Like, I never had the money to do this. Never had the money to do this. And this is where I want you to understand. Just because you don't know all of the information, just because you don't have all of the resources, doesn't mean it's not going to line up for you. A lot of people quit because they're afraid of things not working out. But I dare you to open your mind and try it anyway. Try it without all of the resources. They will show up for you. They will show up for you. Now, after college, I had some pivotal years from 2015 to about 2019. And these pivotal years were when I first started off teaching. So, I was going from maybe having eight to $10,000 a year, from refund checks and working when I could to, 45K salary. And I was like, whoa, that was big for me. And I had moved off to Memphis and I was working as a teacher. And I kind of started to see how money worked for me. And I will tell you guys this story a little bit more about my fiance. Well, at that time, fiance, my husband, and our like engagement story and all of that. But we decided to move where we are now. And that year was pivotal for me. But I want to tell you guys something. This is what you will learn about me. And I think this happens for almost everyone. I manifest faster, unfortunately, when I'm going through things. And what I mean by that is I started to open my mind up to wealth when my now husband and I were really struggling in our relationship. In both of our mental health and also in our careers, like that's when I put my business together. My first business was Limitless Learning International, which I still have. I am still an educational consultant. I did a lot of in-person tutoring, homeschooling, camps, all of that, after school programs, shut down during the pandemic, went online. And then this past March, I actually just shut things down online so I could just focus on being a educational consultant, as well as working on this podcast weekly and all of my other endeavors and digital courses, which you guys will learn about if you want to join. And as I started all of those things, my now husband and I actually broke up, and something happened in me. It was like a light switch went off. Like it was just my time. It was my time to really set up wealth. And I, of course, launched my business. I winded up starting to do it full time within a year. I was able to work on She's Worthy, which is my platform that I'm speaking through now. And I really, really started to invest financially in myself, personal development, looking at multiple streams of income, passive income, all of those things. Like I just really took the time to learn about that. So it wasn't just like I learned how to manifest it and bring it into my reality. I also figured out a way to do things so that I wouldn't have to always work. And I'm going to share more about that with you, because you will always tap out with work. Like there's only so much time in a day, there's only so much money you can earn by an hour, or if you're working in, another company, you have to set up ways for you not to have to be at work to earn money. And now, as I look back, going from my mother's 10K yearly salary as a 9-year-old kid who lost her father to currently having multiple six-figure businesses and millions in net worth, no longer worrying about money, manifesting money effortlessly, and using my feminine energy to do that is incredible. Is incredible. And I don't say any of this to brag. I'm just here to tell you what's possible. I'm here to be the example of what happens when you know that God is a part of your story. That's just what I'm about. So, what I want you to do as an exercise, and we're going to take a break after I tell you this exercise. I want you to think about your story along the lines of money, the good, the bad, the ugly. And then I want you to write out, what would you like your money story to be? What would you like to see for yourself? If anything was possible, what would you choose? What would you like to see for yourself?